We're talking decision making, and I'm glad you decided to join us on the Church Revitalization Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and A.J. Mathieu.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, A.J. Mathieu.
Oh, for a minute I wasn't sure if it was going to be me. I'm glad.
Well, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be today? It's you. We're talking about decisions.
Yeah, decision-making fatigue. Do you know about the decision-making fatigue, Scott? It's
I feel it sometimes. Do you ever feel that?
Yes. You know what? I don't think I've ever thought about it, but now that you bring it up, I get in a state where I'm like, if anybody else needs me to make any decision, I might be done. Just go decide something for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I don't care. This would be okay, or this would be okay, and it won't matter. So
sometimes things don't matter. Sometimes things do matter. And I think that's more of the reason for this week's episode, because you want the decisions that matter to be made well.
Yeah. And if you're if you are stuck making so many decisions, you may start to punt or, just stop caring about things that you should care about.
Yes. And so, I guess studies have shown the more decisions you make, the worse your decision making gets. Those later decisions are not as good as your earlier decisions.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to use your decision making sparingly or strategically, probably would be the better word for the Church Revitalization Podcast. So that's what we're talking about. So we're going to go through.
So we're going to talk about like how you can shed some decision making, right? Was that how you describe this? So that you'd say, here's how you won't have to make as many decisions, so that the ones that you do have to make that do land on your plate, you're not going to be burned out by them.
That's right. We've got 4 categories of decisions that you should consider perhaps making a change about on. Yes.
Love it. Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, yeah. There's another decision people should make. There's a very important decision people should make.
There you go. You got the segue. Go for it, my friend.
You should decide to go to healthychurchestoolkit.com.
There it is.
And sign up for a 7-day free trial today.
Yeah. And you know what? For 7 days, you don't have to decide if you want to keep it.
That's true. You could kick that decision for 6 days.
Yeah. On day 7 is the day of decision.
That's right. You're like, this is not a decision for today. I'm letting this one go.
Yep.
While I explore the myriad features in the Healthy Churches Toolkit, they're going to make my life as a church leader better, easier.
Yeah. You got
faster.
Nailed it. Okay. Now we can move on.
All right. First decision that we want to talk about is operational and administrative things. We're getting into the minutia decisions, things that should not need. This is from the point of view of a pastor, by the way. Things that we don't need to go to the pastor for, but you're probably fielding these things. People are coming to you with lots of things, approvals for maybe, vendor things. It could be scheduling things, purchases. And you probably don't need to be making the decisions on all these things.
Yeah.
And this just adds to the weight that you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do about this? Well, you can preset, you can have some maybe categories of things that can be delegated to others. They just be given the authority and a framework for making decisions on things. Doesn't have to be like all on one person, but could be distributed amongst a team of people. But these are just things that could be offloaded from your plate.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a good story about this, actually. I was taking a church through the leadership pipeline training one time, and we were talking about the delegating and being able to empower other leaders with not just sort of some responsibilities, but true authority to make decisions that are appropriate to their role, and have boundaries. So when we talk about delegating decisions down, we don't mean unfettered authority, but like you have a budget for a reason. And if you put somebody in a particular role and that role has a budget associated with it, then within the boundaries that have been created within that budget, they should just be able to have decision-making authority within that. And so literally as we're having this conversation, a guy comes in he's a volunteer, but he kind of functions as their maintenance guy. So he's not a paid staff person, but he's like a staff person for them, just does it as a volunteer. And he said, hey, the senior pastor was in the room, and he said, hey, pastor, we're going to have to replace this bulb and this bulb because they've gone out, and it's going to cost $30 to replace that. And I just wanted to see if I could get approval to replace those bulbs. And like we're literally having this exact conversation, and the pastor like puts his head in his hands, and he was like, I promise I've already told him he can just make those decisions. he didn't need to come to me. But I mean, that kind of stuff will weigh you down if every day there's some little thing like that should never even have to cross your desk.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we know, no matter what you're working on, every time you have that kind of an interruption, any interruption, and your mind gets pulled away from whatever it is you're working on, it takes a minute to get back. I mean, those things, they take a toll and they pile up. So, yeah, I mean, what if he was sitting there working on his sermon when that interruption came in and he lost his train of thought, or
yeah,
you just never know where you're going to be at, where your headspace is going to be. So,
for sure. So I mean, this is the power of, and we talked about this, and I think last week's episode was last week we were talking about finances. I think so.
I think so. Yeah.
This is why things like budgets matter, because it's like if you put a budget together, then you can empower that person with budget, and if you have a framework for how to execute on that budget, then there are certain things that it should just never even have to come to you. Yeah. And I would imagine that scales, right? So if you're in a relatively small church, you might be getting requests about light bulb replacement. I'd say if you're in a larger church, you probably already aren't getting those kinds of things. But what kinds of things are hitting your desk for approval that really don't need to? So just scale that appropriately to where you're at. Probably the threshold for where that is coming to your attention is lower than it needs to be. With if you could supplement that with good frameworks for decision making.
Yeah. The second decision category is going to be pastoral care things, and this is where you may or may not actually have others that can handle that stuff for you. So it could be that there are other people that they can go to for pastoral care, but they're skipping them and they're just going right to you, right to the top. Yep. So yeah, depending on your church scenario, I mean, there is going to be others that could take this load. I think regardless of what size your church is, there would be at least one other person that could help share the load of pastoral care type things.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I mean, this is a good area for elders and deacons, if their gift mix, I think, is appropriate for this. Not everybody is the right fit for pastoral care or counseling things. Small group leaders, I mean, they're supposed to have a shepherding gift to be in that position in most cases. So, yeah, if everybody's coming to you, then you need some work in this area.
Absolutely. And I think the key word here is triage. I don't care what size the church is, even if it's extremely large. I think that there comes a point when it starts to become appropriate for senior leadership to be getting involved in a pastoral care situation. But even in a smaller church, not every pastoral care situation needs to be going to the pastor. And that's to preserve your time. That's to preserve your sanity. And to preserve your heart. Like, I think that we can become numb even to, if we're constantly around, oh, this person's sick, this person's dying, this person's like, you can become almost numb to that. And I don't know that that's good for us. So have some people you can share that load with so that you're not constantly carrying the emotional burden of every single person who has a problem in your church.
Yeah.
Because nobody can carry that except the Lord.
This has a crossover implication for it as well. Back on episode 339, we were talking about growth barriers and the pastor being a bottleneck to growth. And this is one of those areas in which you can become a bottleneck when everything has to go through you. And so, yeah, I mean, you need to, I think maybe face the reality that if you are the one that handles all pastoral care, you haven't really built a church at this point. You've built a dependency that is going to need to be redistributed so that you can break through that.
Absolutely.
All right, let's keep going, Scott. Decision number 3, we're talking volunteer and ministry team decisions that should belong to ministry team leaders, but instead they're coming to you for some reason.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are certain decisions that should be up to you, either as the pastor or if, let's say, you're the staff person overseeing children's ministry or student ministry. You should be the one who's making decisions about what kinds of things are we teaching, because one of your key duties is to preserve sound doctrine. So there, certainly the strategy that we're going to employ, or the goals that we have, or the vision that we have, these are all things that you most certainly should be in control over. But once you have those kinds of things in place, letting your team make small scale decisions. For example, I may have shared this story before. I think I have in some other context. But back when I was in student ministry, we had a rule that students were not allowed to have their cell phones out during our Wednesday night program. And if they did, they would be asked to put it away. And then if they didn't do that, we would put it in what we called cell jail. It was like a little hamster cage that we put cell phones in, and just until the end of the night, and then the parent could come and bail it out, which gave us an opportunity to sort of just share, like, hey, we just have a no cell phone policy during church thing, and your kid had it out, and so can you just encourage them to keep that in their pocket? So anyways, this was early days of cell phones too. I don't know if I could get away with this in 2026 the same way. But anyways, we had a kid who had his cell phone. I was up teaching. Like, I'm up teaching the students. This kid was out in the hallway, and one of my volunteers was talking to this kid who had his phone out, and he said, "Hey, friend," I won't say his name. "Hey, friend, you've got to put that phone away." And the kid was like, "I'm not going to do that." And then he said, "Well, then I'm going to have to take it up, and then you can get it back at the end of the night." And he said, "I'm not giving you my phone." And he was like, "I'm sorry, that's what the rules are." And then the kid said, "Well, I'm going to call my grandma and have her come pick me up." And he said, "Man, I'd hate for that to be the case, but if you're going to be here, we're going to follow through on what the rules are." And he was like, "I'm not doing that." So he did call his grandma, and she did come pick him up. And I think that some people, and I 100% supported what my volunteer did, because he followed through on a policy that we had put in place, even when it was hard. Mm-hmm. And I got second guessed by other people on the staff for backing that up. And, I stand by it 100%, because if I put a policy in place and I ask my volunteers to support it and to execute on it, and then I sabotage them on the back end of that, mm-hmm. that communicates to my volunteers, well, actually, I can't make decisions. I can't follow through. I can't do things. And so I think it's really important that, yes, you set the tone, you set the framework, you set the rules, but if you really want people to follow through, you have to back them up when they start actually executing. Yeah. And not second guess everything that a volunteer does.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's like a whole other aspect to what could be part of the problem. I mean, this episode has been mostly framed from the perspective of the pastor who doesn't want to have to make all the decisions. People bring things to him, but you can self-sabotage by having policies and procedures in place and you go in and retake that authority.
I think that's what happens a lot.
Yeah. I think you're right. It does happen a lot. Okay. All right. Well, hey, our fourth one is saying yes or no to requests that should have had a process to them.
Yep.
And the kinds of things in this category would be like benevolence things, events,
Yes.
yeah, staff
Yes.
time off, anything that really should probably be written into some sort of a policy, like you mentioned.
So you don't even have to make a decision.
That's right. Yeah. You just follow the checklist. Let's see, does it meet these requirements or does it not? And that probably would free up a lot of time.
I'll give you a good example of this. We've talked about this. I don't think it's been any time recently. But people who come in and say, hey, can I get a stage announcement for this thing?
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
can you put this thing in the bulletin? Hey, can you put this on the website? And the decision fatigue that can come around, gosh, do we say yes to this? Do we approve this? Or are we going to hurt this person's feelings if we say no? But hey, we said yes to this guy, so we kind of now have to say yes to this guy. You know, if you've got a process in place, you can just go, well, does it meet this criteria? Yes, no, and follow that decision tree. And when you get to the end of it, it's like, hey, hey, this is a policy, is yes or no. And you can deliver that policy to that person. And in fact, if you were technologically savvy enough, although this is easier and easier now with AI, you could even just build a form that has all this logic built into it. So if someone's kind of going through the steps and they're saying, yeah, with this, and it can tell them, hey, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to to put this in the bulletin. So yeah, to take away the need to even have to make a decision.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a beautiful thing.
So our charge to you guys this week is track your decisions that you make. Spend some time doing that and see, whether they're small or large, but make a list of the decisions that people bring to you or that you maybe even on a regular basis have to make. And then see how you can maybe organize them into these categories and look at what you can do to free yourself up. Free up some time.
Yeah. Here's some thoughts to think about, or some sort of categories of decisions. You can think, is this something that only I can decide? And those are the ones you've got to hang on to. Someone else could decide this with clear guidelines. So that's where we talked about kind of creating procedures or policies that then enable someone else to do it. Or 3, someone else should already be deciding this. Like, this is not a decision that I even need to be making a policy for. Someone else could just be making this decision right now. And I think if you were to, I'd sort those things into those categories, you could offload a lot of mental pressure. I guess one thing I'd want to say to AJ, and this maybe depends a little bit on personality. Maybe not everybody feels this way, but you may not even be aware, or a pastor may not even be aware of how much mental energy is spent, or like mental capacity is held in cash, so to speak. CACHE, not like money, but this brain space that's dedicated to decision making. Now, if you were to offload that, the sense of relief that you would feel, be like, oh my gosh, I'm just not even, I didn't even know I was thinking about that stuff all the time. But it's just like a back end process, like a computer that's just running constantly. And when you can delegate that or offload that, the sense of relief that creates is immense.
Man, you know what one I would do? One where my wife asks me every day what I want for dinner.
That's the one you would delegate?
She listens to the podcast, so she's going to be like, oh, well.
Have you seen these videos online of men trying this thing where they go, hey, guess what we're having for dinner?
Yeah, I guess where we're going for dinner, what restaurant we're going to.
Yeah, and then they say it, and you go, yeah. I tried that with my wife once, and she said, you saw something like this on the internet once. She said, you're not going to trigger me. I said, yeah, okay, fine. I said, it was worth a shot to try.
No,
funny.
I will continue to collaborate with my
There you
lovely
go.
wife on dinner. I will provide suggestions whenever I can think of them, or my default, spaghetti and meatballs. She's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Then why don't you just tell me the name of the meal that you would like to eat? Oh, okay. I know we're wrapping up, but I brought up that the whole movie phone Seinfeld reference, to a church the other day, and people were like, they not only didn't get the Seinfeld reference, they also didn't know what movie phone was, and I'm not that old, but I thought, God, I'm old. Like, people don't.
What was it like? It was like a Gen Z SLT we're working with, or what?
No. I mean, I would have thought that the group would have been with me, but I mean, eventually they were like, I kind of vaguely remember that. That just made me. It just made me sad. I was like, oh man,
Wow.
I need new cultural references. I think.
No.
You don't think?
No, don't adopt anything new. You gotta stay true to yourself.
But none of my cultural reference, like even Office quotes, don't work sometimes. I'm like, this is from the 2000s. It's from this millennia. It's really sad.
I'm sticking with all my old stuff. I'm digging in, doubling down.
You're doubling down on Seinfeld references?
That's right.
People aren't with us on them, man. They're just not. Okay. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to the Church Revitalization Podcast. Give it a like, a subscribe, give us a 5-star review over on the old Apple Podcast. If you're listening over there, helps us out. Gets it in front of the folks.
Drop a nickel in the tip jar.
By not skipping the ad. Don't skip the ads. Watch them all the way through. I think we might make a little more money when you do that. Tens of cents more. So
that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. See you next week on the Church Revitalization Podcast.